Welcome to Unscripted with Daniel. Today we have Jack Tipold, and he will be running for Porter County Council member of District 3, and I'm just going to introduce you to him. He can tell you a bit about himself, and then we'll get into this interview. How about that?
Sounds good, Daniel. Thank you for having me here today.
You're welcome.
Really appreciate it. Well, my name's Jack Tipold. I am running for Porter County Council District 3. I've got the experience. I've got the background to do this job. So a little bit about me. I lived here in Union Township, Valpo area for roughly 26 years. My wife, Mitzi, and I've been married 27 years this Friday. I have a son, my oldest son, Spencer. He's 25, graduated from Wheeler High School. He's currently in the United States Air Force, so he's serving there. So he's been in a little over 4 years now, so he just re-enlisted. My youngest son is down in Bloomington. Good year to be down in Bloomington. And he's enjoying all the events that are around the football team and everything else this year, but he's been down there, and he's doing real well with his schoolwork and everything else. So
that's great.
We're real proud of him. Both my boys. But yeah, I raised my family here. About 3 years ago, my wife and I, with the boys being gone, we decided to go ahead and downsize. We sold our house out in Shorewood, moved downtown. We love the downtown area. Valpo's such a great city. Honestly, it's nothing like it in this area, that's for sure. And we wanted to be part of that community, and we moved down. Great neighbors, they accepted us right out of the gate. We've got just fantastic neighbors, and the neighborhood in general has just been great. So we love it down there. Walk down to the restaurants and the concerts and catch a VU game, and so it's been a lot of fun. So we're really enjoying it. But as far as the involvement and wanting to run. Look, I've been helping working families for just shy of 30 years. I've worked out at the old Bethlehem Steel, now it's Cleveland Cliffs plant, for 33 years. I've worked out there. This coming up May will be 33 years. I've been a union rep, organizer, officer, served on numerous committees for the last 30 years, helping working families, helping our union brothers and sisters, and a whole range of different things. I sit on the committees for an organization called Veterans of Steel, which gives veterans, primarily veterans that are in the steel industry, but it's a broad stroke. We help really any veterans that are in need of help. Tells them the benefits that are available to them, help them go to the VA, get their percentages bumped up for their disabilities and things like that. So education things that's available to them, help them with those. I also sit on a committee it's called Steelworkers for Kids, and just helping needy families during Christmas time. Usually, concentrated in the Porter County, Lake County, and LaPorte County with that. So I've been doing both those committees for quite a while, and heavily involved with them. Been out as far as the union, like I said, I'm an organizer, internal and external organizer. I'm out sat on committees for when we go into negotiations for our contract talks, which this year we will be in negotiations out in Pittsburgh, trying to get a fair contract for our members. Right now, there's several. NIPSCO's, they're going to be having some issues with their contracts and trying to get things ironed out. BP is currently on strike.
Okay.
So they're having troubles getting their representation, and getting their voices heard. Across the table there, but we hope that those things will be ironed out, and they'll get a fair contract and be able to move on.
I'm curious because I just don't know what's going on at BP that people are striking.
It's a number of things. Safety issues out there. It's always a big concern. Of course, wages, fair wages.
Yeah.
They're not asking for anything outrageous. Maintaining their benefits and retirement package, things of that nature, and the percentages there. Vacation time is always a big issue. Primarily the insurance. Healthcare is gone through the roof. The cost is outrageous, and it's going to be an issue that's going to be on the table when they're negotiating, and they're going to have to find a way to settle for something that enhances the membership and also is fair across the board, with the company and with their members. That's what negotiations are all about.
Yeah.
Finding something that's fair and equitable for both parties. They'll get there. And if they don't, they'll stay out one day longer. Until they get some resolve. So I got to wish them all the best.
Here's a question that just comes to mind just because we're talking about unions and your involvement in them. How will you apply your union experience to being a council member in Porter County?
Well, you have to be very vigilant on the contracts that are going on.
Yeah.
And they have the trades involved with those, get their BAs to be able to negotiate and the agreements that are made. Make sure that there is language in there that represents a union contract.
Yeah.
And pay union wages. So that's very important. Look, in this area, the unions are very strong. Mm-hmm. And they're really the heart and soul of the middle class here, working class families. But it goes beyond that. You don't have to be a union to feel what's been going on.
Right.
And I've said this before. There's no greater education than standing on a picket line, information line, or a picket line. And I've stood on hundreds of them. Over the years. That's where you really get your education as far as what our members are feeling. They're out there on a picket line. They're worried naturally about their responsibilities. They've got house payments, car payments, just bills in general.
Yeah,
raising kids. I'm feeling the impact of the cost of college with my youngest boy. It's a hard pill to swallow every month. There's a lot involved. Going out there and spending time with the members, I'm not out there for a 25-minute photo op. I'm out there on the line with them. I know what's going on with them. I know their concerns. I know why they're worried about their NIPSCO bill. I know why they're worried about the price of groceries, okay? I know. I've been there. And it's important that we get language in that to protect working class families. That's one of the most instrumental things in me wanting to run is to help the working families here. In District 3. And in District 3, one thing I noticed, and this is another reason, this is one of the main reasons, the incumbent, Greg, where is Greg? Even when he's there physically at the meetings, he's not there. He's not there representing District 3 from what I've seen. In this past December, they had the meeting, the most important meeting about passing the budget. Greg wasn't even at that meeting. Where's District 3's representation? Where's District 3's representation when VU's having a land sell-off? Where's our voice about the tax dollars that are going to be lost, and who's picking up the bill for that? That's Central Valparaiso, okay, the city of Valparaiso. The townships, in some cases, aren't paying their fair share. That's going unnoticed. They need a representative who's going to fight for them, District 3, not just check the box as a county councilman, but you are elected to represent District 3, and that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah,
that's exactly what I'm going to do.
For working families.
For working families, exactly.
Yeah.
And this involves, again, it's a broad stroke, teachers, elderly, the small businesses. I get it. And like I said, I've been out there talking to people. We have a great team put together for this campaign. We're excited about it. And I'm ready for this election. I've been looking forward to it, quite honestly. So I'm going to enjoy. Right now, we're reaching out. We're making phone calls. to the different precincts. I'll just let them know that probably within the next 7-8 days, we'll be out hitting the neighborhoods, just to give them a heads up that we're going to be out there. Looking forward to meeting everybody and just hearing what they're, what's going on with them. What's going on in our neighborhoods.
Yeah.
And then to translate that into representation when I get on the council.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And standing up for them and standing up for their issues and concerns. Okay. I think that currently the incumbent has lost touch with that. And he's been there. This will be, I think, his 4th term. It's time for some change over there in District 3, and I'm looking forward, and I'm up for the challenge.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you listed one thing where he didn't show up to a budget meeting. Was there any other issues that you could see, like examples of how he may not be addressing some specific issue?
Sure, tax rates are falling back on the city versus these townships. The calculations are different. Look, we're the hub of the county. There's no question about that. Through the jail, through the courts. Where was Greg during the issues on the hospital? Where was Greg? And like I said, physically he may even be there, but he's not speaking up. He's not doing anything that is representing our district. He is checking the box and going with the flow of the some of the other council members, that their interests are naturally their districts. But it needs to be divvied up a little more fairly. And again, and we'll talk again, Daniel.
Yeah.
I'll bring, we can get more in depth today. I know you said you just wanted to keep this as a kind of like an introduction.
Yeah.
But I've done my homework, and we'll get deep into that. But Greg just isn't representing the district as it should be.
Okay.
And a lot of people feel that way. I've been out. I've been making phone calls. I've been out talking to people. We've got I've been a string of endorsements through the current officials from the Democratic Party to the trades, the USW, the laborers, just a host of endorsements that have been flowing in steadily. It's going to be a good campaign. I don't believe in running any kind of a smear campaign or anything like that.
Right.
My intentions are to run our platform, and our platform is to properly represent District 3 and their issues. Yeah. And make sure that the other townships are being held responsible for their financial responsibilities too. It just isn't fair to take money from the city and disperse it, whether it be paving roads out in the middle of rural, parts of the county versus here in the inner city of Valparaiso. Those are issues that need to be addressed, and we need to see action. So
I see.
And it stems from sidewalks to, and we have seen a little bit of sidewalk repairs and things, but in a broad look of the county as a whole, and then what's going on here in Valparaiso. It isn't being distributed fairly.
And you're allowed to go into details on this because I'm just curious. So what is unfair that's exactly happening?
Well, like I said, when you're seeing country roads being paved and maintained and the infrastructure is being put in place with drainage and things like that, you're not always seeing that in the city, okay, in a fair, equitable manner. Okay. And it should be. Like I said, we generate the tax dollars. The residents of Valparaiso that live in the city hub should be getting the same fair treatment in Porter County as the rural country roads and that aspect of things. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Or picking up the tag for the Opera House. Okay. That was something that, here again, Greg was nowhere to be found. He was there, but he wasn't there. They put the responsibility onto the city of Valpo. relieving them of the responsibility. Yet they want to have ownership of the building. They want to have reap the benefits of it, but they don't want the responsibilities that come with it. So just there's a list of things that we're studying, we're watching, and seeing how some of this has played out since Greg's been in. And like I said, that was one of the main reasons that I felt the need to run, that it's not fair for our residents not to be represented.
Yeah.
Not at all getting represented. It's not right.
So you would say if our roads were more well-paved and there were less potholes, more equitably distributed as far as road repairs, right, then people would be more adequately represented. Are there any other ways that you'd use your position as a council member in order to give representation to the people?
Look, I'm a veteran.
Yeah.
And one thing that I learned while I was in the service is just how to talk to people. It isn't about an R or a D or their political affiliation. Mm-hmm. It's about getting things done.
Yeah.
And finding a way to get things done and leaving it better than when you came in.
Yeah.
I'm not a career politician, not by any means. I'm in this for the residents, for my neighbors, for my family, mm-hmm, to make it better, to continue to make it better, and to be a watchdog to see how these monies are being divvied up all around the county, not just the rural or the other townships being able to kind of extract from some of the city services with not a level playing field. Okay, that needs to be looked at, mm-hmm, and those monies need to be distributed equally.
As far as the inequality there, I know that you talked about roads. Are there any other inequalities there as far as the townships and how those monies are distributed?
Well, I'll say this too.
Yeah.
Look, Valpo University is in a little bit of a crisis here. Mm-hmm. And that's not something that isn't news. We know what's going on. They're selling off their properties. They're down, which means less tax dollars. Again, there isn't a plan B. There isn't any kind of a structure on how these these structures are being sold off, or the properties that are being sold off, and then a plan B for recouping that. Okay.
Yeah.
We need to sit down, talk with VU, see what their plans are and what their issues are as far as what's their decisions on what's prompting them to make decisions on these land sales. Okay. And then we should have some input into that. And we should have a design plan in the event that something more catastrophic happens with Valpo University. I mean, it would be a huge blow to the economy here in this town, no question about it. We have to do our best to preserve that.
Yeah.
But we also have to understand that if it's inevitable that there's going to be a shift in the university, then we need to be prepared for that, mm-hmm, and have someone that can represent the District 3 to navigate through that, but also someone who has the ability to work both sides of the table, not just the Democrats, not just the Republicans. I've been in this game for a long time. Like I said, approaching 30 years. I do a lot of the political work for the United Steelworkers. I've worked with a lot of these candidates on both sides of the fence. Mm-hmm. I have good working relationships with them. They know me. Like I said, I've got a reputation of getting things done. I always have. And I'm going to translate that into helping the residents of District 3, for sure. For sure.
That is good that you say you've worked on both sides of the aisle, and you have worked on both sides of the aisle. And that gives you maybe an empathy for all viewpoints. And I think that that's something that's important as someone who's sitting on the council, you'll have to talk to a lot of people of varying views and understand their perspectives.
And the perspectives of the diversity of this, how important it is to maintain the diversity of this town. That's what makes this town so great.
Yeah.
And look, we've had a huge influx of people moving in from Illinois.
Yeah.
Okay. Yet, in my neighborhood, in the blocks, north and south of me, everybody gets along. I mean, in the summertime, on a Saturday afternoon, I'm walking around, I'm seeing people talk in the front yards, and like I said, it isn't about race, what political affiliation you have, male, female, gender, none of that. It's neighbors, helping neighbors.
Yeah.
We had a big storm come through, trees everywhere. Within 15 minutes of the storm, passing through, chainsaws, everybody getting together, cutting trees off of the cars that were smashed underneath them, and my neighbors were amazing. And that's when I really started. I told my wife, this is special down here, because even growing up, I grew up in Hobart. I'm a third generation steelworker. So we were middle class, thousands of kids in the neighborhood playing. It was good times, man. And I see that in downtown Valpo. There's kids all over the place. They're not just locked in a house playing video games. In the summer, they're out riding their bikes. We have a paved alley. Kids, I make it every time I cut the grass, I make it my mission to go do the entire length of the alley with the blower, because kids are riding and they're running down there, and that's where everybody's garbage cans are, right? And, you have nails and glass, so you always want to make sure that they're going to be safe and sound back there. But it's a great neighborhood, and I want to help keep building that, and I attribute a lot of that to the diversity of Valpo. Look, I've represented. That's what I've made a career out of, representing those that aren't maybe being represented, whether it be minorities, women. Fair, equitable pay for women doing the same job should be making the same money, but that isn't the case across this country.
Right.
And it should be an issue. But again, there's things that are in your day-to-day life that local politics will impact you much more than on a national level. Much more. On your day-to-day life, through the schools, through the buses picking up your kids, your garbage, your local police, your firemen, your infrastructure of your sewers and water lines, things like that. That's your day-to-day life.
Right. Okay.
NIPSCO is your day-to-day life. Okay. And there should be a voice. They need to get this straightened out. There are families that are in situations where they're deciding whether they can eat food or pay their NIPSCO bill. And that's real life, and that's what's going on. And it isn't just the people, under $65,000 a year. This is impacting the upper and middle class. It's that big of an impact. It's a combination of things. Like I said, the price of gas, which has been high for a while, but the groceries, which have absolutely skyrocketed. Medicine and medical care skyrocketing, and then now we got NIPSCO. There should have been something in place. There's a lot of different concepts that people are talking, different ideas that people are talking about that maybe could have been put up front, first, whether it be the easement of certain taxes or whatnot. Until they get, until they can get this resolved. But there's got to be something to help our working families, and they got to have a voice to stand up for that. And they got to have someone who has the ability to organize these voices. Yeah. Just pounding on a desk and raising a bunch of heck over something. There's a time and place for that, I guess, but that isn't going to get the job done. You got to be able to get in there and negotiate, figure out hard nuts and bolts issues, and get all parties at the table and get this resolved.
Yes.
Right? And it takes someone with experience to do that, and I have that experience. And like I said, it's these are just some of the things that I know that when I go to the doors and I'm on the phones talking to our residents. These are the things that are coming up, back to back to back. It's not really hard to figure it out. It's right there in our face, and nobody's really stepping up to do anything about it.
Yeah, affordability.
Right. Yeah, the housing affordability. That's another. Right. But we've got to be able to help these families and find programs out there for them. If they're in need, let's find these programs and make it transparent. They got to be able to not just have to get on the internet and try to find it themselves, maybe necessarily, or a lot of times the bureaucracies in these pages aren't that friendly, navigational friendly. And a lot of our elderly too. Our elderly, they're not tech savvy.
No.
And they have to be, just because they can't get their information paperless, doesn't mean they don't get their information.
Yeah.
All right. We got to make that a priority. Mm-hmm. They have to be informed on what's going on, what's out there for them, and not just through internet. Not through email. They have to have something tangible. The old school paper, you have to do that. You still have to maintain that kind of level of service.
And when you're talking about informing the elderly or people who are not tech savvy, what type of information are you seeking to inform them about?
Well, any kind of programs that are out there through healthcare needs, any kind of free shots, any kind of reduced medical costs that are out there for them, transportation maybe to and from medical facilities that and the routes that are available to them, services like that, affordable housing, and that kind of information. Again, it's out. If it's out there and it's on the internet, that doesn't mean it's going to translate into our families.
Right.
So we have to have an alternative mode to inform these people. Whether it be, like I said, through the good old U.S. mail, which is fine, send them a hard letter, posting things of maybe organized meetings that you can get them there too, and provide transportation for the elderly to get there.
Yeah.
But they have to be given the opportunity to hear what's out there for them. And there's a lot of programs out there that just aren't being utilized because they just aren't being promoted. People don't have access to them. And nobody used them. Well, maybe they didn't have access to it. Maybe they didn't even know they existed.
Right.
And that goes on a lot.
Yeah, just knowing. Sorry, I got this silly cough. Just knowing is half the battle. And if you're just at home all day, you say you're retired. You just maybe are in the rhythm of hanging out at home. Where does that information come past you? Maybe it's an email, maybe it's a letter, and maybe that letter would have an event, like you're saying. Trying to think of creative ideas.
Yeah, like you said, a community center where they're going to meet for be informed of this stuff.
Right.
Or you pick up the phone and have direct lines. You don't not just a voicemail somewhere. I'm going to tell you this, and I'll put my phone number out here on this show. It's 219-973-8309, and I'm telling you to call me if you have any questions, concerns, anything that. Or if you want to be involved in our campaign, it's going to be a high energy campaign. It's exciting to see the people that are getting involved in it, and it's multi-generational. I believe that the younger generation, the Gen Zs, the Millennials, they need to be, and they are actually, they're very involved and they're very concerned about these issues.
They're the most concerned.
They
about
are
these issues.
Absolutely, and they are going to be our future, okay? And I want them to know that they're going to have real-time opportunities working through me on the council to get their voice heard and across on their particular issues. Yeah. Primarily, with those young families that are just starting out, again, affordable housing.
Yeah.
And what's out there? There are programs out there for interest rates that are a little bit lower that can help them get it. There are programs out there. They're out there. They're just not being translated to them. They're not getting any information. Just because you put something out there and you hope that nobody's going to see it, and then later on you say, well, they had that, it was out there, no one took advantage of it. Where was the surge in the effort to make sure they had that? And that's, I can guarantee you this. If I accomplish one thing, their voice will be heard. They'll have those opportunities. They're going to see what kind of programs are out there. And we're also going to make things happen. I mean, you got to have the ability, like I said, to work both parties. Mm-hmm. You have to have that ability.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to that. I think we can get a lot of things done. Right now it's a Republican-based council, flat out. They've got the control. I've worked with a lot of them. Good people, no question about it, on both sides. Jeremy Rivas, at the last council meeting, said that he was maybe going to even step away from the Democratic Party, go more streamline into an independent. So that would leave one Democratic slot.
Wow.
And we have to maintain that, and we have to be able to, like I said, and that's District 3.
Yeah. And
that's important that somebody that represent those people, their needs, their beliefs, their moral foundation, mm-hmm. They have someone that understands them and has walked in those shoes. And I'm gonna do that.
That's wonderful. I know you talked about affordable housing and the programs out there for it. There's other ways to have influence on that, and part of that is zoning. Mm-hmm. What do you think you could do in that regard, and how it's so difficult? I feel like it might be a bit of a partisan issue, but maybe it's not. But to advocate for more affordable housing in Porter County, how would you do that?
I mean, I think we got enough roundabouts. Okay.
Yeah.
We got to have enough parking lots for now.
Yeah.
So now it's time to turn our interests into affordable housing for Valparaiso. Yeah. And when I say affordable, the term even affordable housing, what is that? I mean, the days of the $100,000 a year or $100,000 house, it might be gone. I mean, it might be gone forever. It just, to build a decent house, you're looking at 200,000 plus, man, and that's just the way it is. Now, where do we put those houses? Downtown, clearly, like I said, it's pretty booked up.
Right.
So we do it. We start getting into the townships then. But again, once you get into that, you start talking dollars and cents. Get the zoning approved for it. There's been a pretty big pushback on having affordable housing built out in some of these townships. And I'm a little appalled by that. Yeah. I think that here again, we have to find a section of Porter County where they still have accessibility to the shopping and the hospitals and the schools. It doesn't become a more of a problem, finding needs for those. But you can't just say, well, let the city of Valpo deal with it. Okay. Again, we have to have fair, equitable distribution throughout the county, not just cherry pick the stuff that the townships outside of the city want, and then the city just gets the leftovers. That's not going to happen anymore. If I get in there, we're going to be watching that, and I'm going to be an advocate for those, for District 3's rights as far as what is being developed, not developed, and in why. Not just not being in tune and just checking the box and voting along with the party line, or not even the party lines, the council. There needs to be more representation for District 3. There's no question about it.
You're not going to just go with the flow, in other words.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And I'm not going there to disrupt things. I'm going there, like I said, with experience. I'm an IU graduate. I recently attended Harvard University in Cambridge, their leadership program. I got accepted into that. So I have the experience, I have the knowledge, and the capacity to do this job. I've lived it. Like I said, I'm not out there on the picket lines and stuff for photo ops. I'm out there because I've got skin in the game.
Yeah.
And that's important. And I think that's who you need as a representative, you know. I just feel that it's time that District 3 has its voice heard, has their residents represented.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I'm a millennial, and I think there's a lot of issues for millennials. If it's not affordable housing, then it's, you got to get a car, you got to get the transportation, and if you have a car, then you might have monthly payments on that car.
Sure.
It's so much, and if there were more public transportation, that would really cut down on a lot of costs. Is that something that you see as a large goal for you?
I mean, absolutely. I mean, accessibility to transportation. But here's the other thing.
Okay.
Here's the other thing, Daniel. Especially with the millennials, we're seeing a huge push in organized labor right now. Mm-hmm. Your generation in particular are seeing the needs and the importance of what organized labor can do for them. Mm-hmm. And that's a livable wage, vacation time, health care, a retirement package, okay? That hasn't existed in a lot of these jobs for a long time. I'll tell you something. My youngest son, the year he graduated, senior year, out of Wheeler, and I was so proud of this. They have parents' night, and the parents walk out with the seniors at halftime. Yeah. And in the past, with my oldest son, senior such and such, he's going to IU. Senior such and such going to Wisconsin, Purdue, to study whatever, business, whatever they're studying. Not much mention of the trades or things like that. My son, Griffin, that class, there was about 9 of the seniors that was their last night on the field, right? The last home game. And they talked a little bit about what they want to do in their future. Pipe fitters, iron workers, work in the mills, carpenters, boilermakers, electricians. Those were the goals. Wow. Those are the thoughts of what's going on with these upcoming generations. They're realizing the importance of fighting for those kind of wages, getting those kind of jobs, because that's what you can raise your family on. Those are the kind of jobs. You're not ever going to get rich in a steel mill, okay? But here's what you're going to, you can go shopping in a grocery store and within realistic, not have to worry so much about the prices maybe. Before. Now it's a little bit of an issue, but go to a restaurant, maybe not worry about looking at what the price of everything is on the menu and be so concerned about it. Raising a family, not worried whether you got to put a hot dog dinner together versus paying a NIPSCO bill. It's the wages. If you can get the wages up, a livable wage, and I've said this to you before, there's something wrong where you got young families the husband is working 2 jobs, the wife is working a job, and they still can't pay the rent, man. Yeah. They still can't pay the rent. That is wrong. On every level, that's wrong. Those are things that, you're not going to necessarily get those addressed at a county level. I'm not,
Right.
But those are things you have to be tuned into. And then, again, if there's programs out there, make them easily accessible for our residents. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with programs like that. Nothing to be shameful about. They're out there for a reason. They're there to either help or to enhance our neighborhoods.
One thought that just came to mind is, it seems like in that kind of case where you have a guy working 2 jobs, the wife's working 2, and still can't afford it. At that point, even before that point, it's sort of, there's an element of exploitation of workers.
Sure.
And they're not being respected. Is there any type of maybe there's some programs to prevent even non-union workers from being exploited by employers.
You know, legislation and elections matter. Okay, and you know, we always talk that to our members about how important it is to get out and vote, and make sure somebody's representing your needs in your day-to-day operation of your house. And what you're talking about, you know, with these families, non-union families, you know, a lot of times when the union scale is raised, then by proxy, the companies have to raise to keep their employees. Okay, so they get a raise up, but they're still, you know, they aren't getting the retirement packages, they're not getting the vacation packages, or the safety. You know, that sometimes in non-union shops, the safety aspect is questionable. You're afraid to speak up because you're afraid, you know, you're at will employee, which means they could come in and just say, you know what, I don't have to have a reason to terminate you. Yeah, we're just going to let you go today. I would never want to live under those kind of circumstances, a fear like that. It's important to organize. It's important to find a job that is union. I want to tell you something. This was another reason. Yeah. When I went to decided to run for District 3 county, I went man to man and talked to Greg. I called him up today. I want to talk to you about something. Yeah. He was leery. Didn't really want to meet with me at first. He did meet with me over at Starbucks right off of I met there. And I looked him in the eye and I told him man to man, you know, it's nothing personal. This is why I'm running, and I want to run to represent the residents of District 3. I don't think they're getting a fair shake right now. Very first thing that came out of his mouth was that guys like me, us union guys, they think that they can run for these kind of public offices. They're no more qualified, he said, we are no more qualified to run for junior high school student council than to run for these offices in public. That's where his mindset's at, okay? That's what he thinks about the working families in this, and when you have somebody that wants to represent them. Yeah. At that point, you know, I just told him, look, you know, I came here man to man to talk to you about this. I can see this. You know, he made a scene, and we, you know, I said, well, you know, this conversation's over. Good, best of luck to you. But that's another reason. Like I said, I realized right then and there too. This is the kind of representation we're getting. He's out of tune with the working families. Now, you know, he does a lot. I'm not going to bash the guy. He does some good things. He fixes bikes. He hands out cookies in the downtown area. And that's a nice thing to do. But that doesn't mean you're qualified for the job. That doesn't mean that you're doing the job and adequately representing the people that live in your districts, in your precincts. And he needs to either start being brought aware of that, or it's time for him to go. He's had his opportunities. He's been in office for 3 terms now. This being his 4th. He was caucused in on the first, and he went to elections. But I do believe it's time to get some representation. And for that reason alone, like I said, he showed his true colors to me. So, you know, those are things that people need to know about. There's a host of things that are out there, but, you know, you need to know that you got someone that's got your back. And then, you're not going to win every battle. I'm not going to go in there and tell you we're going to change the world. We're going to make some changes. There's no question about that. Yeah. But you don't win them all. But at least one thing I can guarantee you, if you don't represent and you don't get your voice brought to the table, you will not win that particular issue or that particular argument. Okay? But if you're up there, you got your facts, and you're proudly representing the residents and why you're representing them, and you have the ability to translate that into both sides of the table, the R's and the D's, it's all common sense politics, man. Take care of your people that are in your communities. Yeah. The money's there. Take care of it.
Simple. Yeah. You know what? Thank you so much for coming in. I've heard some shocking things, informative things, and I appreciate all of it. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And
appreciate you giving me the opportunity, Daniel.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate it. And I look forward to coming here again, and we'll talk in detail about some more of the other issues. As my team's out getting information, I'd like to come back here and talk about it openly.
Absolutely.
and let you know what the residents are saying. You're not going to get that from the other candidate. I'll tell you that right now. I mean, so I'm looking forward to representing this district.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Danny.